If you've tried to fly this week, you know there is a growing frustration at major national airports all week. Delays of up to 3 hours for some travelers, as furloughs for air traffic controllers have caused by sequester cuts are now extending the average time at the terminal. And joining me now is Maryland Congressman Chris Van Hollen, ranking member on the House Budget Committee. Well, so the sequester really does have an impact. The furloughs are kicking in, and we're feeling it at the airports. What can be done?
Well, it does, Andrea. Look, these sequester cuts, these very deep and immediate across-the-board cuts, were bound to eventually have an impact. It was never going to be the case that the sky would fall the day after the sequester took place. But what you're seeing now, and we will continue to see, is this slow grind on the economy, disruption at places like airports, and according to the nonpartisan Congressional Budget Office, 750,000 fewer American jobs at the end of the year. So how do we deal with it? We should replace the sequester with a more targeted, smart way to reduce the deficit over a longer period of time that accomplishes the same deficit reduction without hurting the economy. I've tried to offer that proposal for an up or down vote 4 times this year and have not even had the ability to get a vote on that, Andrea.
Mitch McConnell said today this is all because of the poor planning of the administration. Your take on it?
Well, you've got now Republicans who just a few weeks ago were cheering on the idea of a sequester and saying that we had to make these very deep, immediate cuts on top, by the way, of cuts that we already made 2 years ago. Very deep cuts, but cuts that are manageable. But our Republican colleagues said we got to keep the sequester in place. In fact, their budget calls for a doubling of the sequester cuts in the areas of the budget we're talking about, the FAA, the FBI, National Institutes of Health. So the best way that Mitch McConnell and Republicans can help us deal with this is to support our legislation that would replace the sequester in a balanced and targeted way.
You know, we all hear about budget cuts, and maybe some jurisdictions are blaming things on the sequester, but just the other night I heard from a former Senate staffer, she's a mom, 2 little girls, about deep cuts which are shutting down right here in the District of Columbia all of the music and art teaching at a particular school, a very special school. So are jurisdictions beginning to blame this on the sequester, or is this really the sequester kicking in?
Well, look, there's no free lunch at the end of the day. The reality is we can and should make cuts wherever possible. If there's waste in the budget, it should be eliminated. We should find efficiencies. But as I indicated, 2 years ago, we cut over $1.2 trillion from this whole portion of the budget that goes to things like Head Start, that goes to early education, that goes to special education. So if you're doing a whole nother round of immediate deep cuts, it's bound to have a negative impact. And that's exactly why, Andrea, we've proposed this alternative, a way where you can make more targeted cuts, but also eliminate some of the special interest tax breaks that disproportionately benefit very wealthy people. And unfortunately, to date, our colleagues refuse to come together to negotiate that. In fact, earlier today, over in the Senate, Harry Reid, the Democratic leader, simply asked for permission to go to conference on the budget. And the Republican leadership in both the Senate and the House right now is refusing to appoint conferees. So having called over the last 2 years for us to go through the regular order on the budget, they're now standing in the way of moving forward to bridge those differences on the budget. In fact, I'm introducing a resolution later today simply to call upon the House to move forward in a transparent way to negotiate these differences on the budget.
Thank you, Congressman. And I know you would not say that music and art is an extra, that is music and art education for the kids in the District of Columbia is an essential part of an education. Just to make the point.
These are very important parts of a kid's well-rounded education, and you're going to see this kind of disruption, Andrea, in all walks of American life, whether it's on first responders, not getting grants for fire departments and first responders, whether it's the FBI, whether it's air traffic controllers. Again, we can and should and have made cuts, but these very deep and immediate cuts are both disruptive into specific programs, but also a big drag on the economy at a time when we need to put more people to work, not less.
Thank you, Congressman. Thanks very much for the report.